Good evening, everyone. Built in 1953, Oulton Park was designed to be one of the most challenging and technical circuits in the United Kingdom. It was started off as an amazing set of grounds amongst one of a former affluent individual. But more importantly than all of those facts is that it's 20 minutes effectively from my house. I'm Jack Merton, your commentator for round 7 of the Assetto Corsa Competizione Race Nation League here tonight at Oulton Park International Circuit. What a track we are racing around tonight. I am sure we're all looking forward to the action on circuit. We are halfway into qualifying already. The drivers are out there. We've been following a couple of them already so far. This isn't a track that's going to be easy to overtake on by any stretch of the imagination, and it will be one that will promote a lot of opportunities for mistakes. We've already seen Cosmic Crusader, aka Rich Jarram. We've seen him off the road, but let's have a look through the drivers' provisional qualifying results. So let's go to the garage, let's have a look, and rather happily we can now see where everybody is out on track. We've managed to move the mini-map as well, thankfully, so hopefully moving forward we should be having all the happiness in the world. But currently it is Josip Kosic, last week's race winner, is leading the way. He's done a 1:33.772, but he's very, very close to the leading pack. His advantage is not much. We've got Michael van der Waal, best qualifying effort of the season so far, up in second, only 0.04 of a second away from the pole sitter. Tony Sokolov has set the exact same time. He's in third position. Championship leader Stuart Packham just kicking up the dust as he goes through the chicane there at Britain's. He's fourth. He's a tenth and a half back in the BMW. Mark Chapman running in fifth place at the moment. Then again, same set of times here from Steve Hall and Tom Creed, who's back tonight. Those two 0.563 away from the outright pace. It's Daniel Danu in 8th, and you've got Danny Zoutenbayer in 9th place. Can he keep up his string of top 10 finishes tonight? Jordan Harding is in 10th position. It's John Wells in the pits at the moment in his Mercedes, but he's 11th on the timesheets. Ross Harris is in 12th place. Rover Rakatamanga is in 13th in the Ferrari. There he is. He's just approaching turn 4 there at Island Bend. Then it's Dennis Penders, 14th place. We've just talked about Rich Jarram. He's back in the pits. It's Martin van Reenen in 16th. Linus Littrix is the first of the drivers outside of the 2-second mark. He's 17th. Eden Peckman 18th. Tony Manley in 19th. We then also have the number 87. The number 87 of Ardy van Sloot back for the first time in a while. Good to see him. We also have, of course, the name that made me laugh last week. We've got Joe Warner. Froggles is in 21st, and Scott Clark is out on circuit as well. He's yet to set a competitive lap time. So there we are, 8.5 minutes remaining in the qualifying session. It's a very tight grid. The top 9 drivers separated by less than a second, and with this track being effectively 2.6 miles, 2.7 miles if we round it up, it's going to be very close. I'm not surprised that the grid is so tightly bunched together, as Scott just has a little jump over the curbs there effectively at Britain's. I think it's turns 6, 7 and 8 effectively on the international circuit. Let's have a little ride on board. We'll go with Tom Creed. We haven't seen him for a while in his white, blue and black Mustang. We'll ride on board with him. Let's get a nice camera angle. Let's get on board with one of the championship protagonists then, the Mustang building up through the gears, and he's just ruined our onboard lap. Thanks, Tom, for that. Really appreciate it. Let's see if we can skip to quite quickly. I might be able to get over to, I think, Tony Manley. There he is. He's just coming into turn 1 at Old Hall Corner. Now, if we press drive, will it go to him? No, it just skips away. That's really frustrating. So we can flick through the drivers. Here, though, goes Tony Manley. He's coming into Cascades, turn 3. Really difficult corner. Third gear for the Aston Martin driver. Going to build up the reds now. Head towards Island Bend. It's a little bit tricky to spot the apex here, but he's done well in the Aston. He's downshifted to 4th. Then again into first gear, runs very wide, but there are a few lines that he could take through turn 5, and he's done that quite nicely, I think, as Tony. So he's coming into Britain's now, turn 6 here, clip the curb on the inside, clip it again on the right hand side. He just understeered a little bit wide, and then out of turn 8 he goes. He's got Stuart Packham just behind him on track, and he needs to concentrate on his lap. Down through the gears he goes into Hislop chicane, first gear for the Aston Martin. Easy on the power, and he's got to nail the exit through Knickerbrook. Decides to downshift again to 2nd. Does Mr. Manley. Up through the top of the corner there, through turn, effectively turns 12 over Clay Hill, and then into 14. This is Druids. Oh, he's going to skate off the road, and I said it was easy to make a mistake, and there it is. Ladies and gentlemen, this road and this surface is not easy to get used to. We're actually with Stuart Packham, so we can ride on board with him for a full proper lap then, hopefully, of Oulton Park. But he doesn't do a Creed and go into the pits. No, he doesn't. He's going onto his lap. 5 minutes 55 to go at turn 1. Third gear for the M4 driver. Nicely done through turn 1. Straightforward enough. Coming up to turn 2, which is effectively Denton's, but this Cascades that you've got to prepare for. Third gear, clips the curb on the inside, runs it over the outside curb from Packham. Good start to this lap. He's almost 3/10 up. He's got to get turn 4 right now. Island Bend. Oh, I said he's got to get it right, and then he went on the grass. He's going to keep it out of the wall just about, and back into the pits he goes. What happened there was that he ran over the curb, and the curbs are pretty solid around Oulton Park. So if you hit them wrong, you go off the road, and that's what Packham found out to his cost. But he'll go out again. I'm sure that he's got another lap in him, but he won't have much time. We've got 5 minutes to go now in the qualifying session. He's just coming out of the pits, and he's onto the circuit, so he'll have enough time for 2 laps, I think, maybe 3 if he doesn't get any traffic. Now we're riding with Josip Kosic at the moment, last week's race winner at Spa, and he's already on a better lap. This is going to be a 1:33.6. Great effort from the M4 driver. He's in form at the moment, is Kosic. He's had a good season so far. He's obviously 2nd in the championship, but he's had 2 race wins in the last 3 rounds, so the form book is really with him. But can he keep up this level of performance? He uses all of the road at Island Bend. He's still pushing on this lap at turn 5. Got a bit of a side-by-side up in front of us, but I'm fairly certain that's Joe Warner in front of us, who will probably move out of the way for Kosic. He is 10.5 down at the moment on that pole position lap that he's just done. Danny Zoutenbayer, in the meantime, he's moved up to 8th in qualifying. He's still on a good lap as Josip. He's got a really good line. The car bumps over the curves at Knickerbrook. He's still got that McLaren in front of him, who, if he's on his own lap, he doesn't have to get out of the way. And yeah, you can see Kosic. Oh, that's Warner in the wall. And Kosic, I think, will have got away with that. It was a little nudge, but that's a strange accident for Warner to have. Don't know if he fancies doing some landscape gardening, but he's definitely made a change to that barrier. Martin van Reenen, he's in 16th currently. He's on a 1:35.8 on that previous lap, 2/10 off his best effort as he kicks up the dirt at turn 1. Less than 3 minutes remaining. Let's get back to the garage and have a look at our current overview. So, Kosic has pulled the gap. Mark Chapman's moved himself into second place during the qualifying runs. I have to say, Mark Chapman is also in form too. He might not have won last week at Spa, but he did finish in third place, and he's third in the driver's standings. So I'll go through the driver's standings in a little while, just in between qualifying and the race, to give you an idea. Tom Creed, that's more like it. And then Daniel Danu with a great lap. Up to second, the front row of the grid, the Spaniard. I was saying loads of drivers at the moment are in great form. Well, the Spaniard absolutely is. Tom Creed thought he was on the front row, but he's just had that snatched off of him. So that moves Michael van der Waal, who was in second up until 60 seconds ago, down into 5th place on the same time. Actually, 6th place rather, I should say. On the same time as Tony Sokolov. Can he make any improvements? The man who's won a couple of races, he's been in scintillating form as Sokolov. Last week was a little bit more of a bump to earth, but that's not to say he's not fast. Then there's a gap, so 7 drivers are separated by less than 2/10 of a second. That's a phenomenally competitive qualifying so far. You've got Steve Hall and Danny Zoutenbayer within half a second and 6/10 respectively, and then Ross Harris is over a second back. So there's a clear consensus of drivers here who are on form tonight, and that's what Oulton Park is. It's a type of circuit that it's narrow, it's technical, and for these GT3 cars there isn't really any room for errors. So it's promoting the skill in driver ability here, because if you look at the moment, Tom Creed, that's a change in the order. Someone has just disconnected. I'm just trying to work out who that is. And it was someone in this group. It's Michael van der Waal. Oh, that's heartbreaking. Michael van der Waal's disconnected in qualifying. I was just praising him. I don't know if he can get back into the session, but what a massive shame if he can't manage to do that. Going to see who's coming across the line. Obviously, unfortunately, we don't have access to... Oh. I've also been disconnected from the server. Oh dear. We'll just have a look and see. Hopefully that it's... No servers found. That is a peculiar one. Okay, so everyone has disconnected. It's not just a local issue. This is everybody has completely DC'd. Technical term, if you're wondering, disconnected. So we're just having a look at the moment to see what's going on. It does seem that we are going to hopefully be able to get things restarted. We had a bit of trouble, didn't we, a few weeks ago at the Nordschleife for the first time around. Michael van der Wal, though, was the first person to get kicked out of the lobby. So, thankfully, it's everyone who's had the issue and not... Yeah, not just one person and myself, because that would be a nightmare, wouldn't it? We wouldn't have any stream at all if I disconnected. So, the server has been reset, and it looks like we should be able to get back in. We're going to have a very brief practice session. There we go, yeah, that's fantastic. Should be able to connect to that. There we go. So despite the technical difficulties, we have...
Green light. Give it all you got.
Most of the drivers are back in. We're still missing, I think, 1 or 2 from what I could see. But the 5 minutes gives everyone a chance to get back into the lobby, get their setups back onto the cars, and then we can go 10 minutes qualifying, and we'll have a whole new ball game to play. So we'll sit here. I don't think anyone is going to take to the... Well, I say that. I was just about to say I don't think anyone's going to take to the chat. But Mark Chapman has decided he's going to get out there with over 3 minutes to go. We may as well follow him. Why not? He's the only car out on track. A little bit of on-circuit action for everybody who's watching from the comfort of their own home. And for myself, if I really strain my ears, I could probably hear the drivers out on track from where I live. But what a circuit to be at. I am obviously, of course, you know, I'm biased. I'm local to Oulton Park. I do love the circuit. I think it is a really unique challenge on the British track calendar. You know, if you think of all the great circuits that are based in the United Kingdom, such as, you know, Donington Park, Silverstone, Snetterton, Knock Hill, Brands Hatch, and you know, Cadwell Park. You know, there's so many fantastic circuits, but I just think Oulton Park stands out because it's very, very fast, but it's also technical, and I don't think there's any track in the UK quite like that. Some might argue Castle Combe maybe, in terms of it being maybe a quicker circuit, and maybe Silverstone being a faster circuit, but I don't think those circuits are as technical as Oulton Park. But hey ho, that is commentator's bias. And I'm excited. I'm really excited for this race. We've got a minute and a half left of practice. We will continue to follow Mark Chapman as he goes over the effectively a small gravel trap that's on the exit of that corner. It's not really, it's more of a case of an inlay that the rumble strip replaces around there. So that's what Oulton Park typically uses. We've got Dennis Penders out there as well, so we'll follow him. He's got Scott Clark in front of him. He'll probably appreciate a little bit of extra time out there to sort his wheel out. Hello to Mikey. Hope you're doing all right, friend. Mikey has commented to say, up the Oulton Park. Fully agree with you, sir. Fantastic track. But the track is absolutely wonderful. You just got watching Scott just move out of the way of his fellow Ferrari peer as Dennis Penders comes round Cascades. We are about to go into qualifying. But the Belgian, he's acquitted himself well this season, I think, as Dennis. He's done quite a good job recently. You know, he's had a couple of top 10 finishes. You know, he had an 8th place and a 7th place at round 4. You know, his 5th place at the Nordschleife was a really great drive from him. And I'd say it was a recovery drive as well, considering he was involved in a few incidents You know, last time out... Oh, Scott Clark's just run into the back of Dennis. That's it. That was an almighty shunt. I don't think Scott realised that Dennis had pulled over there. So, a little bit of drama. Unnecessary. But we do have it. Nevertheless, everyone is alive, which is the most important thing. We've got Ardy van Sloot just exiting Knickerbrook and taking a little bit of the grass with him as he goes up through the top of Clay Hill. Mikey saying, looks like an interesting grid. Yeah, it is. It is, Mikey. There's a lot of different brands that are represented tonight. I've talked about it previously. We've got the only Lamborghini in the field of Ross Harris. We've got the BMW M4 GT3s of Martin van Reenen, Josip Kosic, Linus Littrix, and Stuart Packham. And then beyond that, you've got the Ford Mustang drivers, Jordan Harding. You've got, of course, last week's debutant, Rich Jarram. He's also in the Mustang, and Tom Creed as we get qualifying underway. So we've got 10 minutes for the drivers to get out there, and they're all rushing out right now to get on circuit and get a lap time in. They don't have much time as they would usually. We've got the plethora of Ferraris, of the 296 GT3s. You've got Eden Peckman, Tony Sokolov. Look at it, it's like a traffic jam at the moment. You've got Scott Clark, you've got Mark Chapman, Dennis Penders, who we were following just before. Our reigning champion, Steve Hall, in the number 5 Ferrari. We've already covered, of course, Ardy van Sloot, Rover Rakatamanga, and Danny Zoutenbayer. And you've got a couple of other manufacturers represented. Daniel Danu, I mean, he'll be sat there frustrated with what's just happened with the server resetting. He was on shot for a second place there with a fantastic effort. Michael van der Wald, he's got another chance to try and get himself into the top 6. Joe Warner also in the McLaren as well. And then the sole Aston Martin V8 Vantage, the AMR, Aston Martin Racing equivalent of Tony Manley, the Italian, out there too. So here is the car at the front. I'm going to imagine it's Josip, and it is indeed the man who is second place in the championship. The Swede is out there trying to get himself as much time on circuit as he can. I think Mark Chapman's just run a little bit wide through. In fact, yeah, he's gone off the road. You can see just in the background that lime green Ferrari went off the road, and he's just cost himself a little bit of space to set a lap time. He's going to have to wait to get on behind Steve Hall, I think. There you go, he's going to get on there. So this is going to be a frenetic 8 minutes and 12 seconds. Hello to you, Jordan, as well, who's just commented. Bit of a different type of session. There's Martin van Reenen in the BMW. Let's get out there and get on board with a couple of drivers. So that's, of course, Ardy van Sloot just trying to find himself some space. Let's follow Rover Rakatamanga. He was really fast last week, was the Frenchman. He was right in the mix, and he finished 5th in the end at Spa. He was unlucky with a couple of mistakes, but it was really nice to see the Frenchman up through the field. He's on his first flying lap of the session. We've only got 7.5 minutes, so it's all down to not making any mistakes. We'll keep an eye out for any yellow flags out there. Nice line through Island Bend, and then into turn 5 here at Shell Oil's corner. A little bit of dust and gravel kicked up in front of him from Joe Warner, but that won't affect him. And he's just got to get his line right as he comes through into turn 6, 7 and then turn 8, otherwise informally known as Keating Chicane. Over the top of the hill he comes, and now he's going to approach effectively turn 9 at Hislops. Got to get his braking right, which he does quite nicely. A little bit deep into the corner. It will compromise him, as you can see. He goes onto the grass approaching Knickerbrook, so he's just got to get himself focused and get this lap time validated. Up over the top of the hill and then into effectively Druids now at the right hander. He's going to come across Joe, who I think he will. Joe's on a flying lap, so he doesn't have to move out of the way. So this is going to be a bit of an impeded lap for Rakatamanga. And yeah, there's a bit of indecision going on. They're both kind of getting in each other's way, and I think there's contact. Yeah, Rich Jarram caught the pair of them, and into the gravel trap he goes. So I think Warner was trying to move out of the way of Rakatamanga, but sadly, a bit of miscommunication from the pair of them, and they've both lost time. So there's one lap down, and I think Yeah, there you go. Warner's round, and that's into the field, and he's just clipped John Wells. It's just not going the way Warner would have wanted. He's back on circuit, and that means John Wells has gone back to the pit. So John's not going to have much time to set a lap time. I couldn't not mention it, Mikey. But it's Stuart Packham at the moment who's got the fastest lap on a 34.2, but we saw in qualifying previously the drivers were doing 33, so there's plenty of time to come. Martin van Reenen up to third as it stands. He was down in 16th in the first qualifying session, so if it were to stay like that, I think he'd stop the clock right now, but then Mark Chapman's just moved into 4th place. Now, can Josip respond? Can the Swede take the challenge to the championship leader? Yes, he can. It's a 33.7. That's more like it. What about Tony Sokolov? He's not set a lap time yet. And that's going to fly him up into the top 5. Who else is responding? We've got a couple of cars. Steve Hall comes across the line. He's in 6th place. We've got Daniel Danu. He's just moved up to 3rd. So he's right where he was earlier. Minus a grid spot. Tony Manley, he's in 15th. He's just crossed the line. We've got, I think, Revarakta Manga. He's just set his next best effort without any impediments, so that's up to 14th. Waiting to see a few drivers yet to set a lap time. Jordan Harding will be the next driver in the orange Mustang. And that puts him up to 8th, so that's a bit more like it for him. Just trying to keep on top of it as much as we can. Rich Jerem, he's just crossed the line, but he's not yet set a lap. So he's got 4 minutes and 9 seconds. He's got enough time, I think, to make 3 laps around here. We all hope that Scott Clark can set a lap time, but he's had nothing but trouble this season. I think that's John Wells. He's just crossed the line in 14th place. So let's just have a return to the on-track action. Bear with me one moment. So yeah, we're watching Danny Zoutenbayer. We've got Linus just off the road in front of us, but I think he's just moved. So Zoutenbayer, he's gone 2/10 slower on that effort. Kosic still flying at the moment, but this lap is invalidated. So he's got a little bit of time to get round and do another flying effort. Linus back in the pits. He's got enough time to get out there if he gets on with it. And yeah, he must have heard me. Out he goes, straight onto the track, and then he's reset, and now he goes again. So hopefully I was saying before, Martin van Reenen would have happily stopped the count. He's now in 11th place. So it just shows you how quickly this qualifying session can shake out. We've got less than 2 minutes remaining. Martin van Reenen isn't going to prove his time. He's got Stuart Packham, who's just gone quicker. There's Stuart Packham, there's Tony Manley in 13th place. Warner's back in the pits. Michael van der Wal in 3rd position. He'll be chuffed with that. Daniel Danu in 5th place. He's not on a flying effort at the moment, but he'll have enough time to do one more lap. He's pushing to get on with this because he knows he hasn't got much time. a couple of cars in front of him. So let's return to the pit garage. Let's try and follow the drivers as and when they come along. Tom Creed, bear in mind he was in the top 5 earlier, 15th place as it stands, goes to 13th. So Creed struggling a little bit. John Wells has just gone in front of him. I think that was a change for Ross Harris in the top 10. And then, of course, Linus Littrix has now gone onto a flying lap. That's Ross getting out of the way. So can Kosic go any quicker? He's got a 33.7 and he's done a 33.6. The Swede is on fire at the moment. What about the Croatian? Can Sokolov go any faster? Not yet, but he's got one more flying effort. Him and Michael van der Waal. This is unbelievable. I've never seen this. 2 sessions in a row, Michael van der Waal and Tony Sokolov have set exactly the same time again. Unbelievable. This is Michael van der Waal's final effort, I think. And it is, and he's going to remain in 3rd position. Danny Zoutenbayer on his way to what would be the highest grid position for him so far this season. He goes a little bit quicker as well, so a nice lap that. Jordan Harding, next one to come across the line. No improvement from him. Just looking at Mark Chapman, that's more like it for Mark. He's into 5th place. And I think that was Ardy van Sloot. He doesn't improve either. Tom Creed, this is the big shock, down in 15th place. He's got all the time in the world now to try and push to the start-finish line. That's more like it from the Ford Mustang driver, up to 6th place. Scott Clark, will he set a lap time? No is the answer, sadly, to that. So the only driver left on track who can potentially get into the top 2 is Tony Sokolov. Kosic, currently provisional pole. Stuart Packham lining up on row 2. But what can Sokolov do here? Out of the final corner at Lodge, over the hill of Deers Leap, and he does go quicker, and it puts him in front of van der Waal. Wow, fantastic that. What a great qualifying, what a frenetic qualifying session we had right at the end. Tom Creed is not on a lap. He's returning back to the pits. I think he'll be breathing a huge sigh of relief to get that lap time in at the end, because I don't think he'd have enjoyed being down in 15th, and yeah, he's just skipping out a little part of the track there. Scott Clark, I think, just trying to get his wheel aligned. Someone's hit the bollards on the inside of Hislops there. Jordan commenting there, he's qualified in 9th. He said it's not a Mustang circuit. No, you're not wrong. The GT3 Mustang around here is definitely less nimble than the Ferraris and the McLarens. I'm quite impressed by Kosic and Packham in the top 2. I mean, but is that not to be expected? You know, our championship leaders, they are 1st and 2nd in qualifying. So let's just recap them, the order. So we've got Josip Kosic on pole position, Stuart Packham 2nd, Tony Sokolov in 3rd. 4th place, Michael van der Waal, best qualifying of the season for him, with Mark Chapman and Tom Creed with a last-ditch effort to get on row 3. Daniel Danu and Danny Zoutenbayer are on row 4, with Jordan Harding and Rover Rakatamanga rounding out the top 10. We've got Martin Van Reenen and Steve Hall in row 6, Ross Harris and Dennis Penders in 13th and 14th places. John Wells and Tony Manley are 15th and 16th respectively. And then on row 9, we've got Rich Jarram and Linus Littrix. Then we've got Ardy van Sloot and Edin Peckman rounding out the top 20. And then the other drivers that we have will, of course, be Joe Warner and Scott Clark. So those are the grids. Mikey's saying he's seen more nimble buses. Fair enough. So whilst we wait for the race proceedings to get underway, that gives the drivers a chance to just contemplate what's happened and a breather before we go into it. Let me just run you through the drivers' standings at the moment. So Stuart Packham, he is leading the way on 142 points. He's your championship leader. Josip Kosic is 2nd on 132. Mark Chapman is third on 131 points. It's very close between these drivers. Daniel Danu is fourth on 130. Steve Hall is fifth on 126. Jordan Harding is sixth on 125, with Tony Sokolov on 113. Tom Creed is eighth on 100, with Dennis Penders ninth on 99, and John Wells rounds out the top 10 on 92 points. So there we go. That was perfectly timed. We've got an hour race in front of us. And good evening to everybody who is watching the stream live. It's great to have you here. Session due to start in 2 minutes. If you are new to ACC Race Nation and you don't know how the format works, we just had our, well, what would have been a 20-minute qualifier session. The lobby, for reasons unbeknownst to us, had a little bit of a crash. We managed to reset it. So we had a very flying 10 minutes quali. And now we've got an hour race in front of us around Oulton Park International. Only 3 more races left in the season as well, which the drivers are certainly looking forward to. If you're unaware of the races that are coming up, we've got Suzuka next week. What a track that will be to race around in GT3 cars. The Red Bull Ring, which will definitely promote a lot of overtaking opportunities. And then the final race of the season down in South Africa in Kyalami for a 2-hour night-day race cycle. So that'll be fabulous.
Seconds.
So we will have a formation lap when the session gets underway in just a few seconds' time. There we go. So the drivers will get underway. Well, I hope they do, because currently Kosic is the only one who's got moving. There's the rest of the gang just behind him. Always like to get that rear wing shot. There's Linus Littrix a bit further back, Martin Van Reenen, Stuart Packham as well. So the drivers have a formation lap, and then they have a mandatory pit stop, which they can take at any time during the race. But the key will be around Oulton Park tonight is keeping it on the circuit. It's very easy to make a mistake around this infamous track. It's been here for quite a long time as Oulton Park. If you didn't know, it's been open for 72 years. In that time, it's hosted a plethora of different types of events. You know, it currently hosts the British touring cars, British GT drivers race around here as well in GT3 cars. The British superbikes are quite frequent around here as well. The single-seater GB3 cars race around here, but formerly, you know, British Formula 3, the Formula Renaults back in the day, the RAC Tourist Trophy, and the Gold Cup, just where Formula 1 cars competed competitively in the 60s and the 70s. The Gold Cup still happens every year, of course. It's a more historic event now, but it's a great event to go and watch and explore. Now, if you're wondering in terms of where the drivers are in terms of lap time, I always do this because make a mention of this statistic, because, you know, our drivers in the ACC Race Nation, they are quick, you know, they're no slouches whatsoever. But the official lap record around Oulton Park in GT3 cars is by Jules Ganon, If you don't know who Jules is, he's a French racing driver. He's competed in the, excuse me, he's just competed in the 24 Hours of Spa. He's won around that as well in his category. But his best record is a 1:33.857, which Josip Kosic was 2/10 quicker than in qualifying. But we are about to get underway here for this 1 hour race. Exciting times in front of us. I'm really keen to see what happens here. We've got Kosic round in the final corner. We've got Stuart Packham just behind. Let's see who reacts the best as we come towards turn 1 at Old Hull for the first time of this 1 hour race. Here in ACC Race Nation, that's a good start from Stuart Packham. He's going to be on the outside going into turn 1 at Old Hull corner. They give each other a racing room, and sure enough, Packham slots back in. We've got a couple of drivers moving about. I've just skipped backwards to Linus Littrix. He's side by side with Tony Manley, and there's an incident, and that's Steve Hall in the wall. Steve Hall's round. He's put Ardy van Sloot, and Linus Littrix is also into the barriers as well. So we've had an incident already at the start of this race. Daniel Danu's been caught up in that. Let's just have a little look for... Oh, Dennis Penders has just pushed. What? I think it was the BMW off the road. I think it's just about managed to rejoin the circuit, but we've had an incident already. So we've had Rich Jarram is in the thick of the wars. Scott Clark, Ardy van Sloot. We saw Steve Hall for his championship. That's a big blow. Eden Peckman caught up in that. Josh Warner as well, and Martin Van Reenen I think is actually a little bit higher up. But other than that, a chaotic start. Unfortunately, we weren't expecting that at turn 1. I think Linus Littrix's timer is ticking down, and he's gone into the pit lane, so that's game over for him. And I think Rover Rakatamanga is out as well. But as they come towards turn 1, for the first time at racing speeds, it's Josip Kosic who leads the way. It's Stuart Packham in second, Tony Sokolov up to third, or rather remains in third. Then it's Michael van der Wal, Mark Chapman, Tom Creed, Daniel Danu, Jordan Harding, Danny Zoutenbayer and Dennis Penders. That is the top 10. We've got a couple of other drivers further back. Ross Harris, and I think that's John Wells in front of Tony Manley. We've got Martin Van Reenen, who has got a bit of damage, so Martin got caught up in it. I think Joe Warner managed to avoid it, but he just got held up as a result, so he's kept his nose clean, and that might be the same for Eden Peckman. Ardy van Sloot certainly had an... Oh, that's Eden Peckman on the grass at going into turn number 4. You definitely don't want to be there. And Rich Jarram, yeah, you can see the amount of damage that he has, and Steve Hall's in the pits. Well, it will serve as his mandatory pit stop, but he'll be absolutely devastated with that. It will no doubt probably end up acting as his dropped score then within the championship. But Kosic still leads the way after the first 4 and a bit miles of this circuit. He's got Packham with him, he's got Sokolov with him as well. So he had a little bit of a blip last week with the Croatian, but he's back on form tonight. But those two M4 drivers looking imperious at the moment. They've got a second to Sokolov already. Michael van der Wal, Tom Creed. It's a new livery that for Tom. I'm sure that's an update. He's got a bit more blue and black going on to it compared to the last round he entered. Definitely hasn't changed in the lime green Ferrari for Mark Chapman, as the timings just kick over. So the top 10 are all separated by pretty much a second or so. Then it's Dennis Penders, who's the first of the group that are outside of that on his own. Ross Harris and John Wells together. Joe Warner running in 15th. He's got Eden Peckman all over the rear spoiler of that McLaren. I think Eden just being cautious about trying to make a move that could end up in an incident. let's get on board with the action. Let's have a look at what the drivers are up to. So there's Linus. So Linus has returned to the race. He hasn't retired, thankfully. And Steve Hall almost a lap down. That's how much time he's lost because of his pit stop for fixing the damage. Right on board with the leading duo, the championship protagonists at the front. And these two were very tensely together during last week's race at Spa. There was almost a moment where it looked like Packham was going to get past Kosic after the pit stops, but it didn't quite work out for the British driver. But Packham just keeping the Swede in his sights as they run through Cascade. 90 miles an hour for the BMWs through that corner. Look at the gap, it's already extending to Tony Sokolov. So these two are in Planet BMW and are already getting their heads down. With Tony Manley, he's got Danny Zaltenbach has made a mistake actually, because he should not be in 12th place. He was in front of this group. Oh, and that's a mistake a little bit further up the road. I think Tom Creed's just gone off the road. Yeah, Tom Creed is running in 9th place. Just going to cut to the Mustang driver. We obviously continue with the same cameras. Need to get an outboard shot for that, just so we can see if Tom has any damage. Doesn't look as if he does from the external camera angles. No, he doesn't. So I wonder if it was just a little mistake for the Mustang driver. So Tom Creed, it says he's in 8th place. He's actually in 9th. He's just going to have to get on top of how he's feeling at the moment. Probably be a bit of frustration in that helmet of his, but time to concentrate, get back on with it, and focus over the remaining 53 minutes in this race. There's already so much has happened in the opening 6.5 minutes. Joe Warner has been overtaken by Edin Peckman, and he's been turned further around. A little nudge from Ardy van Sloot to get round there for him. And Joe has to wait for a couple of other cars to go past him, and then he will get underway. So just a small grass clipping for the McLaren driver. And he'll carry on regardless. Michael van der Waal in 4th position. And I said earlier on, you know, it was his best qualifying position of the season. The Dutchman, looking for his best race result of the season. He did have an 8th place at the Nordschleife. He's had a 9th as well at round 2, but this is by far and away his most competitive showing so far. There's a yellow flag out there. Oh, that's Linus Littrix, who's gone round at Knickerbrook. I thought it was one of the race leaders, but alas, settle your heart rate, everybody. It wasn't one of the two at the front. But I was about to say that the Dutchman doing a great job, but he's got Mark Chapman behind him. And Mark Chapman, we know, a race winner this season back at Zolder. It might seem like a long time ago, but in the grand scheme of the championship, it's a big result. It's Daniel Danu went wide in the background at Lodge there. But this is pressure for the Dutchman to hold onto this 4th place. He runs a little bit wide at Old Hall, but no real chance for Chapman to go through at Cascades. So Chapman's going to have to wait for a little mistake from the Dutchman if it comes along, because that's the key thing. It's really difficult to overtake around this circuit. There it is, the Spaniard of Daniel Danu. He's in 6th place at the moment. He's got Jordan Harding right with him under his rear spoiler. In that McLaren 720S. And that rear spoiler just saying tarmac there, just to remind Daniel where he needs to be on track. Want to keep himself away from the green stuff around the confines of the circuit. Ooh, that looks like, I think that's Tom Creed was having a little look in the background there at Dennis Penders. So Creed back on to his rhythm as Rich Jarram has gone off the road at turn 5. In fact, we'll see if we can cut to Rich. Yeah, he's completely in the gravel track. He's getting back on. So I think he ran off the road, did Rich. He's now back on track, so that's key. Stuart Packham's had a mistake. He's no longer within a couple of tenths of Kosic. He's gone off the road and he's got a lot of pressure behind him. So many little fights all over the circuit. I'm trying to keep on top of as many as I can. Oh, snap of oversteer from Creed. And you can tell he's eager to get past. He wants to get past the Ferrari in front of him. Because he knows that the drivers in front of him, they're already 5 seconds up the road from the Belgian. Creed's going to just have to work his magic. Oh, I think that was Ross Harris trying to go around the outside. I think he's gone off the road, actually. I think Ross tried a move. It was on the outside. Yeah, and there you go. Yellow flag. I hope he's not in the barriers. That would be an absolute disaster. But I think Ross was trying to make an overtake at a corner that you don't normally go 2x2, and he has hit the wall. Doesn't look like a massive amount of damage, but we've got to wait for him to get up to speed. Penders, though, still in front of the number 13. But it's down to the Mustang driver to try and force the issue and get past. Martin Van Reenen on his own. Ross Harris is behind Danny Zoutenbayer. So the excuse me, the order just shuffling round. I wonder if Ross will need to pit, and it'd be a shame if he has to. He's had a fair amount of bad luck recently. As Harris. Oh, Eden Peckman running wide. Tony Manley's right there with him. And into the pits goes Danny Zoutenbayer. So it's a very early stop. Tony Manley trying to make a move at turn 1. I don't think that one's going to occur. But I wonder if there was damage on Danny Zoutenbayer's car. We'll have to wait and see. Now, I said before that Packham had made a mistake, and I wasn't incorrect, ladies and gentlemen. He's 2 seconds behind Kosic now, and he's in the clutches of Tony Sokolov, who will be quite delighted to be this close to the back of the BMW, because he can use the M4 driver's lines and just gauge a little bit of where he can find a bit more time to try and keep with the M4, but he's having a few little wiggles through the corners. A little bit of a sideways moment through Druids isn't going to help that. He's got Michael van der Waal, who has since gone from being under pressure from Mark Chapman to on the offensive. There you go, he's right there. That dark green McLaren is thinking, forget about having a top 5 result, I want a podium. Danny Zoutenbayer has just rejoined the track after his pit stop just in front of Steve Hall, who has been lapped, and that must be a sobering for our reigning champion. We'll have to find out what happened to him. In terms of the start of that race, because it looked like he just got caught up in somebody else's incident. Blue flags waving. The drivers will move out of the way, but it's a question of when is best for them to do it. Ooh, a bit of a clamp of the curb from the equation. And look at that, the gap already over a second now. So the consistency of the 2 BMWs in front of us, well, as we've got a tyre stuck over on the right hand side, but the consistency of the M4 drivers in front, demonstrating how vital that is around a circuit such as this. But we're coming up to a quarter race distance. 45 minutes and 54 seconds remaining. Scott Clark out on circuit, and he's done 8 laps, ladies and gentlemen. He's on the lead lap. It's fantastic to see him out there. And I know that some people might think that's a personal thing. Am I supporting Scott Clark? I support all of the drivers. But the key thing is that Scott Clark has been through so much rubbish this season. Well, he's also gone through a little bit of a grassy moment for him as he approached the chicane at Hislops. But he's out on track, and he's not really had the chance to do that this season. So it'd be good to see him. If he could finish in 16th, it'd be his best result in quite a long time. Definitely be his best result of the season. We shall see. Mark Chapman back with the group. Steve Hall moving out of the way. That's good driving from Steve Hall. Went to the left to move out of Sokolov's way, moved to the right to get out of Chapman's way. Actually, ladies and gentlemen, what has happened to Michael van der Wal? Where's he gone? Oh, he's dropped down the field. He's in 9th place. What has happened to the Dutch driver who was doing so well? Just got to get the right camera angle, because has he got damage? Or did he just slip off the road? Judging by the exterior, it looks like he's just slipped off the road. Ah, such a shame. He's got the speed today, so do not rule him out of still finishing in the top 6. Certainly not out of the realms of the impossibility. But that's the first mistake from Van der Wal. And the key now is just to get back in the headspace, back where you need to be as a driver, concentrate on getting your braking zones and your acceleration points right again, and then build up from there. So Mark Chapman up to 4th place then. Daniel Danu moves up to 5th. Jordan Harding running in 6th position. Danny Zoutenbayer now getting blue flags. And this is going to frustrate Stuart Packham, because he's stuck behind the Ferrari and he's losing time to cost it. Well, I say that just as I say it, the Dayglow yellow Ferrari of Zoutenbayer moves out of the way. But that gap is 3.3 seconds for Packham to try and close down. And he's got Sokolov right with him again. Still a long way to go though. Pender's running in 8th position. There is Zoutenbayer now that he's let the other drivers through. He's going to have Steve Hall fighting for 18th place with him in a moment. Kosic must be rubbing his hands together with glee. He'll be delighted with this. He's got a lovely advantage over Packham behind. And the black WMS liveried number 9 leads the way. And just coming up to a third of the race distance at the moment. He's got that lead from Stuart Packham. Follow with the exterior camera and the rear spoiler that we can see here. You can see the Ferrari closes up under the brakes at turn 5, but the Constantino effect really of cars travelling through the corners certainly Tony Sokolov just filling the mirrors of Stuart Packham as they approach the chicane at Hislops there. That's just going to put Packham off a little bit. It's just going to take his eye off the ball. He wants to go chasing after the race leader, who has lost a little bit time in lapping Rich Jarram in front of him, and Joe Warner as well. That gap down to 2.5 seconds, 2.3 seconds. So Depends how well Stewart can navigate the traffic. Because these two in front, they are fighting quite hard. There goes Rich Jarham. He moves right off the road. Everyone else behind navigates that pretty safely. Although Mark Chapman's going off the road, I think. Yeah, he has. Mark Chapman skated off the road. And I think he's just dropped down the field. No, in fact, he's got away with it. He's carried on. He's only lost 2 seconds. He's just about survived that. Maybe his eye was just taking a little bit off the ball for the braking zone. But Chapman just about survives for another day. In the meantime, Jordan Harding's just got past Daniel Danu. I saw the time flick over, and yeah, there you go. So Jordan running in 5th place. He wasn't expecting to be there, but he's got himself into that position. And the Spaniard finds himself in an American sandwich because he's got one Mustang in front of him, one behind him in the form of Tom Creed. See the black and green race outfit that the Spaniard uses. And he'll have to really protect that position. It's a case of what could have been for Dan, who had his qualifying time from the first session stood. You know, he'd have been on the front row. I think he's just having a little bit of a wobble at the moment. Just needs to give himself a chance to dial himself back into the circuit, really, because his best laps are 1:34.6, and he can go a lot faster than that. He certainly can. Doesn't help, admittedly, when you've got a Mustang a second behind you. But he can manage that situation. We've seen it do it before. And he'll be using Jordan Harding in front of him just to follow his lines, get a bit of a mental reset and go for it again. Ooh, bit of a slide through Britain's there. He's got away with that as Danny, but little errors like that can just knock the confidence of a driver. There's John Wells in the top 10. And I say that with almost a little bit of surprise, but I think this is the first race this season, and we're at round 7, don't forget, where John Wells has not been involved in a lap 1 incident. So he is running inside the top 10, and he'll want to stay there as long as he possibly can. Ross Harris is that damage that he got then when he went off the road and he was trying to overtake the other driver before, doesn't seem to have affected him as much as what could have happened. His last lap was a 1:40.8 though, so I think he's slid off the road somewhere. He's got Evan Peckman for company, just 1.2 further back. But we're going to join this fight. This is the closest fight on circuit. Bit of a wobble for Dano in the braking zone at Cascades. But this is the closest fight outside of the battle for second place at the moment, which we can see just over there. Oh, blue flag. Oh, Daniel Danny's running to the back of Steve Hall. And Creed on the sensible side of the situation there. Just stay behind Danny. That could have been a chance for him to get around him, but could have been another accident had he have capitalised too swiftly. But thanks to that little mistake from Danny, it's given Jordan a 2.3 second advantage over this mini fight for 6th place. But this is a good fight to watch. We'll keep an eye on it as the race unfolds. Michael van der Wal also on the back of Dennis Penders now. Rich Jarham, he's been in the walls and the wars so far today. There is Jordan Harding for that matter. The 3 Mustangs are all together on the random rotator list that I've got here. So if we need to have a little bit of a Mustang watch, and there goes Tom Creed into the pits. That's the first driver making their mandatory pit stop. So Creed must be sat there thinking, I need to get past this duo of drivers, I need to get up the road. So Creed pits, and this is his time to try and overtake and undercut the two drivers in 6th and 5th place at the moment. Sokolov still on the back of Packham at the moment, but he's got Mark Chapman's attention. He is right with him. And these three, since Kosic distanced Packham, the gap's kind of stabilised. 3 seconds it is at the moment. And will Packham think to do what he did last week at Spa? Will he think to try and undercut the BMW again? Because if he does do that, it'll be a lot harder to overtake around here than it was at Spa. And what does Sokolov and Chapman do? What do they think about pitting now as well? Now that the pit windows are open, in that sense, Chapman just comes alongside the Ferrari. That's a little bit wide from Sokolov. He's going to hang on, I think. And that's Chapman in the pit, so that's what I was saying. Chapman losing a little bit of time, and he thinks best chance to pit is now. So in he goes. Now you do lose quite a lot of time when you make a pit stop here at Oulton Park. If you look where we are on the track map in the top left corner, you'll see that Sokolov is there, but the number 13 going the other way, that is Tom Creed. So that is a huge amount of time that's lost in the pit stops. But Sokolov, if he wants to hang on to a podium place, he has to get on with it in this lap. Scott Clark still running in 16th place. Steve Hall is catching him. It might be that he ends up 17th, but still really good to see him out track. 33 minutes and 43 seconds remaining. Nearly at the halfway mark. There is Chapman coming out of the pits now. He's up to speed. And importantly, crucially, he has clear track in front of him. So it's down to Chapman to get some lap times boxed off. Dennis Penders, I said he was caught by Van der Waal. There is the dark green McLaren. So the Dutchman versus the Belgian here at Oulton Park. That will carry on. Aardie van Sluis. He's in 12th. He's having a nice quiet race. I don't think he'll mind being sat in 12th currently. He's still got to make his pit stop, but outside of the issue at the turn 1 incident, he's been relatively quiet throughout this race. So he'll just hope to maintain this for the rest of the race today. Tony Sokolov is in the pits, and we've got a yellow flag on the exit of Druids. And I think that's Joe Warner, who's gone round. Froggles is back up to speed quite slowly. And is he going to come into the pits? Is he going to carry on? No, he's going to carry on. And I did just actually see the white flag being shown out on circuit, just to say a slow moving car. Now Sokolov is coming out of the pits as we speak. And I think Mark Chapman is going to emerge behind him as he goes over the AstroTurf on the exit of turn 1. He tried, but Sokolov responded. And he's done a good job as Sokolov as well to keep in front of Chapman. So if Mark wants to get through, he's going to have to do it on track. He's going to have to overtake him somewhere around this 2.7 mile course. Creed is only 3.5 seconds behind Aardie van Sluis, but he's 10 seconds off Mark Chapman, and that gap's come down since Creed pitted, so starting to come back to Tom Creed as this race. Oof. Sloot going off the road. I wonder if he will move out of the way for Tom Creed. Yes, he does. He gets straight out of the way. But fastest man on track at the minute is the Mustang. Dennis Penders now comes into the pit lane. Jordan will no doubt continue on until it gets to about 30 minutes, and then he'll make his pit stop then. The two BMWs 7 seconds apart now for Stuart Packham, and I wonder if he's made a mistake somewhere, because that gap's a lot bigger than what it was. And the question is will Stuart Packham stay in front of Sokolov and Chapman? He's yet to make his pit stop. I think Scott Clark's just gone off the road actually at turn 5, and the exit at turn 4, the approach to turn 5. He's back on track now. Ross Harris at the moment in 6th position. The last of the top 6 runners who haven't made a pit stop. We've got Adam Peckman still to make. Well, I say that he's in there now.
We are halfway through. Keep it up.
Thank you to the race engineer telling us we're halfway through. Tony Manley's still out there. He's in 15th. Not yet made a stop, nor has Scott Clark. Do have a couple of retirements in the race thus far. And that's Kosic in the pit. So he's decided now's the chance for him to get in there, take the advantage almost away from Stuart Packham. I think the key for Kosic though is that yes, he's made his pit stop, but he won't want to get caught up in the traffic. You know, that'll be crucial. Martin van Reenen, he carries on for another lap, so he's deciding to continue on circulating. Michael van der Wal, he's made his stop. Says he's running in 11th place at the moment. I suspected that would be the case. He's actually 10th. So someone has disconnected from the lobby. I know that Danny Zoutenbayer is no longer in the session, but he wasn't running in the top 10 at that point of the race. Daniel only 5 seconds away from Tom Creed, who himself, Tom Creed, is only a second behind Tony Sokolov, who's down the order. And I was just about to say, what's happened to Mark Chapman, because he's in the pits. And Mark Chapman, who was battling for a podium, is no more. He's in the pit lane and he's dropping down the order. Wow. Front two, the race leader and the second place driver, they have gone into the pits. So that means John Wells will take the lead of this race. He still has to make his pit stop. Martin van Reenen is in as well. And there is Josip Kosic coming around the final corner. So Kosic will have a net race lead. Packham just coming out of the pits now, but I think it's a little bit too late for him. He gets up to speed here, and Kosic is already going into turn 3. Ross Harris also in 4th place, yet to make his pit stop. Tom Creed's made some gains as well. Sokolov's got damage, and I wonder if him and Chapman had an incident on track, because they were close together. I wonder if they've had contact, maybe. Could be completely wrong about that, but Sokolov is behind Jordan Harding now. And Tom Creed has worked his way back through the field. So despite this not being a Mustang track, and him having his issue as Scott Clark goes over the... providing a premium grass cutting service there on the exit of turn 6, 7 and 8 at the chicane. Tom Creed has made his way through the field quite nicely. It's been a relatively solid recovery drive thus far. And Sokolov has got couple of lapped cars in front of him about to be lapped. So Clark just gets out of the way. See Creed, that Mustang, closing ever more. I wonder if we'll have to find out what happened, because Mark Chapman now down in 19th place, so I'm sure in the post-race discussion we'll find out, as Ardy van Sloot has gone off at turn 4. So a couple of drivers being caught out by this quick left-hander that we are approaching. So just to give you an idea, the drivers are approaching this in 5th gear, then downshift into 4th, 120 miles an hour. Get the line wrong, you're skating off the road and into the barriers. And Ardy van Sloot's got damage to the front of that Ferrari, so that'll be a trip back to the pit lane. Scott Clark in for his mandatory pit stop. And I think Mark Chapman might be the most angry man on the circuit at the moment. If he's been caught up in an incident, he definitely won't be pleased. He's quite a long way away from the driver in 18th position. If we just have a look, which is Rich Jarram. Yeah, that's a long way. So he'll carry on, Will Chapman. I know he will. He's not the type to quit. This will make a dent in his championship chances. He's already had a dropped score because he missed the race at round 4 of Imola, so recovery time really and getting the points, that's what Chapman needs. Dennis Penders, he pitted before, he's in 10th place. So I've got a couple of drivers still to pit in the top 10 actually. And I say a couple of drivers, it's actually just one now because John Wells is in the pit lane. Ross Harris also needs to make a pit stop as well, but he's currently in 3rd place, so he's enjoying his blue time in the sun. John Wells is going to emerge in front of Dennis Penders, so this is a really good stint from John Wells, up into 9th place. Steve Hull's lap 1 incident put him on the back foot, but he has worked his way up to 13th. He's 2 and a bit seconds behind Eden Peckman, and then he'll have a bit of time to go before he catches Martin van Reenen. So 12th place could be on the cards. Eden Peckman's done a 37.5. Steve Hull 1.3 seconds quicker than that. We'll see a battle in the next lap or two. Josip in a planet of his own at the moment. The Swede in 1st place. 5.4 seconds clear of Stuart Packham, who's got an Aston Martin sandwiching the two of them at the moment. Ross Harris still hasn't made a pit stop. I think Van Sloot's just gone into the pits, actually, Ardy van Sloot then. I think that was his Ferrari. And if my mathematics is correct, and indeed it is, this is the closest fight on circuit. And this is a battle for the podium, ladies and gentlemen. You know, Jordan Harding said before he wasn't expecting much from this track. It's not a Mustang circuit, but he's kept out of trouble. And there he is in 4th position. Well, there he was in 4th position. Let's ride on board with Standard below. Look how close these 3 drivers are together. A kick of oversteer from the number 13. On board. He's really pushing. If Creed recovers to a 3rd place result, he'll be delighted with that. He looks to the outside line on the approach to the chicane at Hislops, but he won't find a line through there. And Jordan has 21.5 minutes and a little bit less to try and hang on to this position. Won't be easy. And not only that, he's got Sokolov with the group as well. So these 3, you know, Tom Creed, that's Tom Creed round, he's in the wall, and that's big damage. And that's all it takes around here. A simple misjudgment of the corner for Tom Creed, and he ran a bit too wide. He was pushing so hard, he knew a podium was on, and the Mustang bails into the pits. Oh, what could have been. So Tom Creed disappears from the podium fight. Mark Chapman's just let me know to say that Tony Manley went off in front of him, and Chappers followed his line and straight into the barrier at speed, so that would have been at turn 4. Too much damage to drive back, so now he's going for fastest lap. Ah, that's a shame, Mark. Sad to hear. Tom Creed in the pits. So, this is still the closest fight on the circuit, but we have one less protagonist. And this time, Jordan now has to try and defend from the Croatian of Tony Sokolov, who's looking for a 3rd podium this season as the Croatian. He's had 2 race wins. Jordan has had a podium as well this season. He's just been very consistent as Mr. Harding. A number of top 10 finishes so far in this campaign. That's why he's 6th in the championship. Sokolov is 7th. And they're coming up to the back of Ross Harris, actually, who... I was just about to say, he hasn't made his pit stop, but he now has. So this is, on track, the fight for 3rd place. Let's give you a bit of a recap of where everybody is. I know that this is a close fight, but I just want to come back to it. So, our race leader, only 1.2 seconds clear of Stuart Packer. Oh, and Tony Manley's hit the side of Stuart Packer. I mean, it won't be 1.2 anymore, that'll be a bit bigger. But that gap had shrunk considerably. Have to find out what happened there. In the fight for 3rd position, Jordan Harding is in front of Tony Sokolov. Daniel Danu's worked his magic up to 5th place. Michael van der Wal back up to 6th, on track for his best result of the season. Dennis Penders has quietly gone about his business tonight. He's in 7th place. John Wells, nice stint before, has got him into 8th place. Ross Harris, that long stint, has put him in 10th place behind Martin van Reenen. So he's... I thought that was Martin van Reenen going round, but he hadn't. He just kicked up a bit of dirt. Edin Peckman is in 11th place. He's not a million miles away from the top 10. Steve Hall is in 12th place. So is there a chance at Steve getting in the top 10, our reigning champion? Tony Manley, he's in 13th position. Tom Creed, who's got pole position at the moment, fastest lap, 14th and 2 laps back. Then it's Scott Clark in 15th place. It's Rich Jarram in 16th. It's Mr. Froggles himself bumping over the curbs there. That's Joe Warner in 17th. Mark Chapman going for fastest lap, but he can't do that if he's got Tony Manley right in front of him. And then Ardy van Sloot is in last place, although he nearly runs into the back of Joe Warner, which certainly would have been less than ideal. But still, the closest fight on track. We've got nearly 17 minutes left of this race remaining. I think both of these drivers would love a podium. I mean, who wouldn't, to be honest with you? But Jordan especially wouldn't be expecting it. It'd be his 2nd surprise podium of the season if he did get that, because back at round 3 Jordan wasn't expecting anything when the championship visited Bathurst, and he got a podium. He got 2nd place, so just shows you consistency means a lot in championships, and Harding is a prime example of how to do that. Sokolov close to the back of the Mustang, but just can't get on terms with him. That Mustang's just got a little bit more in the power department to keep the Ferrari away from sniffing an opportunity. I will say Daniel Danu is catching these two. He's just there in the background in the dark green Ferrari McLaren. 3 seconds, less than 3 seconds now. I wonder if Jordan is either A, concentrating on defending, or B, he's got... I don't think he's got any damage. He's got a yellow flag that's just cleared. I think that was for Tony Manley. But Daniel Danu is catching the pair of these two. Edin Peckman there in 11th place. He's on his own. We'll follow it from Tony Sokolov's perspective, who's just seen the Total Energies sticker on the back of the orange Mustang for a bit too long now. A quarter of this race remaining, ladies and gentlemen. 15 minutes to go. Can Hardin hang on, or will Tony Sokolov about to have a guest protagonist, and that's someone off the road? That's Ardy van Sloot just running off the track. I think he's just moving out of the way, actually. But is he about to have a guest protagonist in the form of the Spaniard Daniel Danu? This will make it a 3-car fight for 3rd place. Jordan runs wide. This is the chance for Sokolov. Can he get on terms? He can't. That Mustang just has a little bit more power. Round the outside. Surely not at Old Hall. I was going to say that would have been an unbelievable overtake. He just didn't have the grip on the outside of turn 1 to try and make that move play out. We'll ride on helmet cam with the McLaren. You can see the challenges of this track laid bare in front of us from the perspective of our current Croatian who we're on board with. But look in the little camera, ladies and gentlemen, on that right hand side of your screen. That's the dark green McLaren of Danu, catching these two up immensely quickly. And this is now a 3-car fight for 3rd position. And they've got lapped traffic in front of them. It's a couple of seconds up the road yet, but that'll play a big part. It'll all be coming down to how Jordan navigates the traffic. Danu is there. If you can't see him, we'll just get the rear wing shot. There he is. Lights ablaze. Oh, Sokolov was very wide at Druids. He just about kept it on the circuit. You can see he's pushing. Have a flick through the drivers. Chapman up to 17th. He's only 6 seconds behind Rich Jarram, so he might as well go after him. See if he can gain another spot. He's only 12 behind Joe Warner, so top 15 result could still be on for Chapman. Des Penders, he's on his own as he puts a lap on Tom Creed. Steve Hall in 11th place. He's 7.5 seconds away from Ross Harris. It would be a stunning recovery drive from Steve if he cracked the top 10. Kosic is 5.2 seconds clear of Stuart Packham, so whatever happened before, when that gap went down to about a second, clearly not worrying the BMW driver anymore, and he's on his way for what would be another race victory this season. As I mentioned before, Kosic has already had 2 of them in the last 3 races, so he's about to make it potentially 3 from 4. It's really going to put a stake into the ambitions of Stuart Packham's championship hopes. There's Tony Manley. He's the driver who that group are catching, and Daniel Danu's up to 4th. We haven't seen it. Whilst I was cycling around the drivers, Danu has got past Tony Sokolov, and was it a little... So 11 minutes and 15 seconds of this race to go. Jordan Hardin has held on for 10 minutes and a bit. He's had a couple of different challenges as Eden Peckman goes off the road at turn 4. Ooh, that's a very wide line from Danny, but he gets away with it. But he's got to attack and defend. He's in a different position to the other two drivers that he's with now. Is Danny? Wow, the corner speed that the McLaren has through turn 5. Oh, just about avoiding an accident. It's nice and timed on the brakes. I could just see Sokolov was trying to find a way past. But as I was saying, Danny was in a completely different position to these two. He doesn't have to worry about attacking, nor does he have to worry about defending. He has to do both. And that's the job that... he's got one job more than the drivers around him at the moment. This is where the action is at. And the McLaren trying to find a way through. That's the chance. He's going to go to the inside line. He's going to be on the outside. Going up the hill, and that Mustang just squeezing the McLaren out, and he stops him from going through. Hardin is making that Mustang about as wide as a double-decker bus, and that's Danu almost skipping over the grass. Chance for Sokolov on the outside, and he goes through. A change of position then. Wish I could just skip to them, it would be so wonderful. We have a little bit of a glitch going on with the timing tower. I'm hoping that the lobby can just... Everyone's disconnecting. Everyone is disconnecting? You're joking. That is heartbreaking. 10 minutes to go. That's the biggest anticlimax we could possibly have had. Yeah, and it's everyone has been kicked out once again. Mikey was just saying how he's keeping ahead of these two is unreal. It was a really good defence shown, and well. We now need to find out what steps will be made and taken regarding the race results. Jordan saying he was enjoying that. I'm not surprised, Jordan. It was the pick of the action. And what will the next step now is, what will the race directors and admin team decide to take as action here? Because, you know, we did complete 50 minutes of the race. And we did complete 50 minutes of the 60-minute race. So we would have completed, I think it would be 85% of the race. Yeah, pretty much 85% of the race pretty much we completed. And thankfully we did get a race out there. Well, if that is the case, Mark Chapman saying 5's still in. I think it's a mass disconnection, to be honest with you, Mark. And in fact, the announcement has just come through to say that we're going to call the result on positions at the point everyone got kicked out. So what that means, ladies and gentlemen, is Josip Kosic takes another race victory is third in 4 races. The Swede is on fire. He will take that race results as a victory. We'll have, of course, in second place, it'll be Stuart Packham, and well, he still had 10 minutes remaining of his defensive efforts, but it's worked out. Jordan Harding will result in third position then. It'll be Tony Sokolov in fourth, and Daniel Danu will be in fifth position. And then everybody started disconnecting from that point, from that scrap that we were watching. So that is how the results will end up. And driver of the day, you'd have to look at Jordan Harding, really. I mean, that defensive shape that he had, it was outstanding. He kept everybody behind him. You know, he defended from Tom Creed, Tony Sokolov, Daniel Danu. They all had a go. They all couldn't get past. Well, in any case, ladies and gentlemen, that is it for today's racing. It's a shame it ended so anticlimactically, but nevertheless, we do have our race results, which will be posted on the SimGrid website, so do check that out. If you're curious about signing up for ACC Race Nation, do check out the Discord as well. The drivers will be dusting themselves down now after that. Next week, we'll be heading over to Suzuka in Japan, a wonderful track that will no doubt have a lot of opportunities for the drivers to have a good fight around. But from us this evening here at ACC Race Nation, thank you for sticking with us. And wherever you might be in the big wide world, have a good one. And we will see you next week at Suzuka.